Today, we're going to talk about how to break into finance, tech, and digital transformation using your master's degree. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to dive right in. We've got three amazing panelists. We have Kirtana from Philips, we have Siva from Standard Chartered, and we have Chenmin from ByteDance. What we're going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey, and hopefully some of those insights could be inspiring for you. And then we will introduce the three panelists and we will have a quick chat with them. We will find out a little bit about them, what were some of the challenges that they faced when they were applying for jobs in tech, finance, and digital transformation. And finally, we're going to look at what were some of their experiences during the job. And at the end of it, they're going to share with you some of their insights and share some advice. So hopefully by the end of this session, you'll have a whole host of nuggets of information that you can use to break into the industries. So today, let me start with introducing myself. My name is Jesse Barth. I've been in the consulting industry for about 20 years. Prior to that, I was in telecommunications, billing, and IT. And more recently, I am in venture capital with Vickers Venture Partners. Now, this seems to be a journey that I've taken that has gone through many ups and downs, through many industries. And I want to share with you some of my key insights that I've taken away from two particular groups. One group would be the talent and hiring managers who I work very closely with in my consulting work. And secondly, some of the insights that I've gained being in the venture capital industry, working with some of the smartest people around in portfolio companies as well as within my company. So if we were to take a big step back and really have a think about hiring managers, talent management folks in the digital transformation, in tech, and in finance, some of the key things that they will be thinking about would be fit, can you do the job, and will you do the job? So these are the three things you have to keep at the back of your mind, because that's what they keep at the back of their mind. So always keep that in mind. Now, what I wanted to share with you is that, look, to be honest, we are in a highly competitive world right now. We are competing with practically everyone across the world. You have to stand out to make a difference. So these jobs in tech, digital transformation, and finance, they are some of the most highly sought after jobs in the world. So it's going to be a difficult path to get there, but today we're going to show you how, using your master's degree and some insights from Kirtana, Siva, and Ming, how we can actually break into that industry. Now, what I'd like to share with you is this. From my years of experience and what I found really truly works are three things. One, a healthy dose of curiosity. Secondly, it would be needing to add value. And thirdly, it would be to fail fast. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, let's look at curiosity. If you're looking at getting a job in any industry, the first thing you've got to build up is your sense of curiosity. And I don't mean curiosity just from a point of what's happening in this industry, what's some of the biggest trends in that industry. What I mean is going a little bit deeper. Let's say, for example, you are really interested in a tech industry, in a tech job. What I'd like you to do is start thinking about things not from your perspective, but from their perspective, the tech industry. Think about what are some of the biggest challenges that tech industry or that company actually face. And then start thinking about what are some ways that you can help alleviate those challenges. So firstly, by being more curious, what that means is you've got to listen a bit more attentively and actively without needing to respond. But most importantly, you've got to ask the right questions as well. So by listening attentively and asking the right questions, it's one of the greatest ways that I found to actually help you be more curious about other industries and, most importantly, people. Because at the end of the day, who sits behind these companies are people, and people are who you're going to interact with all the time. So be curious. That's step number one. Step number two, I would say, is add value. Now, whenever we want to think about applying for a job, most of the time we're thinking about, let me show my resume, let me show some of my achievements. All that is well and good, but what's really key is trying to figure out a way for you to solve the problems that the hiring managers have or the company has, and how you can add value to that. So it's about transposing your skills onto their platform, so to speak. By doing that, what happens is you're making the job much easier for the other party and making it easier for them to see how you can actually add value and complement to their entire business. Now, how I got into the so-called finance industry, into venture capital industry, was really using these two methods, being curious and adding value. So how did I get involved in the venture capital industry? Very simple. I speak to a lot of people. I have a lot of friends. And when I speak to them, I get really curious about what some of their biggest challenges are. Now, when I do that with a healthy dose of respect and a healthy dose of understanding that I don't have all the answers. And that's why I'm asking them questions. Now, when I ask them those questions, I will then think about, look, what are some ways that I could add value? So for me particularly, what happened was I spoke to the chairman of Vickers, and we were having casual chats. And in those casual chats, I would just ask about what were some of the biggest challenges. And if you look at any industry, in venture capital, two of the biggest challenges are raising money and investing in really good portfolio companies. Now, spending a lot more time and finding about these challenges, what it helped me do was it helped me realize what the gaps were and how I could add value. So that's what I then offered. I said, hey, you know what? I know someone who is working in Kuwait, who might be an excellent complement to the business. Great opportunities for investment there. And without even so-called looking for a job, the job came to me. So that's what I would say would be extremely useful if you start being a bit more curious, asking the right questions, and showing people how you can add value. Now, keeping all of this in mind, I think the other mindset that complements this extremely well is the mindset of being willing to fail and fail fast. Now, we have been engineered socially through the schooling system, through life, to never make mistakes, to be as perfect as possible, to present ourselves so well, to never make a mistake. But the truth is, with this TikTok generation, with the way everyone has been changing thanks to COVID and all of the other challenges, people are looking for authenticity, but most importantly, people are looking at you, the true you. And what I would say is sometimes it's okay to show a sense of vulnerability. Sometimes it's also okay for you to not be perfect. Now, I know this runs counter to what many people would say. You have to put on that perfect front. But I would say keep embracing that mindset of it's okay to fail, but step up again. Every time you fall, get up again. Now, the whole reason for that is it's extremely important for us to keep trying, as opposed to overthinking and always being lost in our minds. So those are three things that I feel would be extremely useful for you. Being able to be more empathetic, being able to find out, having curiosity, being able to show how you can add value, and also embracing that mindset of failing fast. Now, these three, if you start embodying them and thinking about them in your interactions with hiring managers and the outside world, what's going to happen is people are going to get a little bit more drawn to you, and you are going to get more drawn to opportunities as they arise. However, what's extremely key and the foundation of all of this is we need to create more connections, more conversations with people. Because once you have those conversations, connections, and new introductions with people, you expand your network. That is the network effect. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to extend our conversation to three amazing folk from three amazing companies who are going to share a little bit about their journey, having gone through the master's program in ESSEC, how they broke into their industries, and what are some of the advice that they can give. So right now, what we're going to do is I'm going to have a panel discussion with Kirtana, Ming, and Siva. We're going to find out a little bit about them. Perhaps they could share a little bit about themselves, the job that they do, how did they even get, into that role, something personal about them. And then after that, I will guide the conversation into getting from them some of the challenges that they faced before getting the job, and what did they do to prepare themselves to break into the industry. And then secondly, what's going to happen is we're going to take a look at some of the misconceptions that most of us have about each particular industry, just to clarify, some of the notions that some people have. And most importantly, they're going to share with you some insights that they can give you, having gone through the master's program and landed at their dream jobs. So without much further ado, let me open the floor to Kirtana. Kirtana, would you like to share with us a little bit about yourself, your name, what you do, the role, the company, when you completed your master's, and perhaps a little bit about yourself?
All right. Thank you so much, Jesse. Even before I begin, let me thank everybody at ESSEC. It's truly a pleasure being here today. A little bit about me, you know my name, so I'm not going to reiterate that, but a little bit about me. Currently, I work as a business intelligence analyst at Philips for this division called as EDI. Fancy word, but what that means is the solutions we sell are basically those that digitally transform hospitals. And when I mean digital transform, these are IT solutions at the back end of a lot of imaging modalities you see out there. So that's about me. And I graduated from SMIP, which is the Strategy Management and International Business Program at ESSEC in 2020 at the peak of COVID. So I'm the, let's just say the COVID graduate, so to speak. But yes, so that's about me. Would love to take any more questions as we go along, and looking forward to an interactive session.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Kirtana. Chenmin, would you like to share a little bit about yourself, the role that you're doing for the company, and when you graduated from ESSEC Masters?
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. And so I'm Ming, and I'm currently working as a data analyst in TikTok. And I a very fresh graduate. Actually, I graduated in January this year from the data science and business analytics program. But I think I'm a little lucky that I did spend half of my master in the France campus. But then due to COVID, then I decided to come back to Singapore, and then started my analytics career in Singapore too. And I think my role in TikTok is definitely very interesting, because it's such a high growth company. And then as a data analyst, you get to work with product operation. And I would say actually you have interaction with a lot of teams, and you can really see you make impacts to the product, how people use, and the extent of the impact. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. I'm happy to share more about that in this session.
Lovely. Can't wait to hear more a little later. Thank you, Chenmin. Siva, floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse. And good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to be in this conference. So as Jesse mentioned, I'm Siva, and I work with Standard Chartered. I'm in the capital markets team within financial markets. Now, unlike my two other wonderful hosts, panelists, I would say, I'm more in a traditional industry, as a big bank. And what we do is we do structuring solutions, leverage solutions for companies. I do most of the structuring work, and these are traditional deals where you can go onto a stock exchange and buy these deals, right? So that's my role in a nutshell. Happy to go into more details later. But I would say in my role, so amongst the three panelists, I'm also the oldest. So I graduated in 2018, I believe. Yes, 2018, that's right. And I've been in my job for about 3 and a bit years now. So it's been quite a journey. And I can tell you exactly how my master's came into play in terms of helping me in my day-to-day role, how much of a benefit in addition, it has given me a competitive edge, I would say, ahead of all my colleagues. So in a nutshell, I would say I come from a more established bank, with a lot of people want to join the masters to get into a good bank, to a finance role. I do know that lure of fintech today, it's very attractive. So we do need to keep that in consideration as well. But if you would like to, join a bank and, go through the entire process, you can hit a chat up with me later and we can get the details. Over to you, Jesse.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Siva. I think what's really beautiful about this panel that we have today, aside from the lovely faces this Saturday, is we have three individuals who have gone through their masters at different periods of times in their life, who are now in the jobs at starting out. They've been there for a few years, and Siva even longer. So I think it's great insight that we can get at various stages from all of them. Now, I think what we really want to know is, how did all of you break into each one of your companies? Is there a secret sauce? What were some of the challenges that you faced? So maybe let's take a deep dive into Min. Min, maybe could you share with us what were some of the challenges that you faced before getting a job, and how did you get your job? Min.
Sure. Yeah. So I think for me, something maybe a little bit about my background is I come from aerospace engineering, and I also work for for engineering company for 2 years. So for me to transition into a data analytics field, I think the biggest challenge I have is still this, I think the first thing is still the technical knowledge, which I think my master really helps me a lot. We do have very, I would say, a diverse range of courses available. So you can focus more on the modeling part, data science part, and there is data analytics part, and then really focus on the marketing analysis, etc. So you really I really feel like what I learned from my master is so relevant to what I work today, and also super relevant to the interviews I have to went through. And I think the second biggest challenge is to I think for anyone who is making a transition in their career is to actually have some relevant experience. And I think my master really helped because of the corporate research project I have done from my master, because this is like a compulsory requirement for everyone in the curriculum. But I think the one I did is super relevant for me to get my jobs. I actually got asked about that during my interview, because I did build a fraud detection model in that project, and we actually helped the company in Paris to actually help the company to catch the fraud, and that model was put into production from the corporate project. So, and then I think the biggest two challenge I actually really helped, my master really have helped me address, to build a very diverse range of technical knowledge, and also to have very relevant project industry experience that where I think just like Jesse mentioned, you need to show the company in a very clear and easy way that you can be the person to add value to the team.
Oh, excellent, Min. I think it's really fabulous that coming from a different complete industry, from aerospace, you mentioned, now into ByteDance, it's something that most people would not imagine is possible. But I think you have just shown us that there is that pathway that is available. And I think what's amazing is the fact that your project actually helped you get the job. Is that right?
Sure, yes. I think that project was asked during my interview every time. Yeah.
Going one step a little bit back, how did you actually go about hearing about this job opportunity? How did you apply for that?
Sure. So I think for me personally, I used LinkedIn a lot still because, but I think this is just the first step, like trying to, I think first to establish like the industry you want to go in. So I think I do know that I'm very determined to go into a very high growth industry because I'm looking for that kind of personal growth. So there are a few industries I know I'm interested, and then zoom into a few companies you're really interested. And so I did use LinkedIn. I did also ask friends who I know are working there for referral. Yeah, so I think the whole process kind of started with make sure you know which industry you want to go in or the types of companies you want to join, and then use all the resources you have, try to get the interview. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Min. I think what I've taken away from this is be very clear about the industry that you want to go into and then persevere and give it everything you got. Thank you so much, Min, for that deep dive. Kirtana, maybe you could share with us what were some of the challenges you faced before getting this job? What were some thoughts that went through your mind? And how did you break into your industry?
Right. Thanks for that question, Jesse. I'd have to break it down into two parts, I guess. Let's start with the challenges, right? And then go into who was my point person for this role. The challenges, I think, are obvious because it was 2020 last year, and it was the peak of COVID. And what happened with that is, as an international student, this is something you would have to be cognizant of in any host country, right? Visa regulations tend to change when things are not as conducive as usually is. Now, what that meant was the typical routes of LinkedIn, typical routes of applying for jobs online doesn't always pan out. So in my case, especially when I had to break into this role into Philips, I would just attribute it to something that happened while I was in my SMIP program. So SMIP has this mentor-mentee matching program where essentially you get matched with an ESSEC alumni with a similar background, but who are far ahead into their careers, right? I got matched with this lady called Alexandra Weil, amazing woman. And essentially that mentor sort of became my friend. And while I was at ESSEC, we were able to do sort of one-off consulting projects with Philips just because of her. And now one of the ladies I worked with back then is my boss, right? And when this role opened up, basically Philips was like, hey, Kirtana, do you want to come in? And you, of course, go through the typical interview process, the whole spiel, but having somebody who sort of guides you and who's more of a friend now than a mentor, I think that goes a long way. At least it did in my case. So that's, I would say, build really good connections, not just for the heck of it, right? I mean, people say network a lot and overuse the word network, but build deep personal connections. And that just goes a long way in your personal or professional lives.
Thank you so much, Kirtana. I think that you have just hit the nail on the head. I think everyone talks about networking to the point where it's almost like speed dating. It's so overused that we've forgotten what it truly means to connect with someone. And I think in your case, you've married two concepts very beautifully. One was the concept of networking and connecting with someone. So in the case of having that mentor-mentee relationship during your master's program, I think it's so lovely to hear that there is that option as well. And that's what a lot of the students actually get. And it kind of opens up doorways for you. Thanks for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And now we have Siva. Siva, could you share with us some challenges and how did you break into your industry?
Sure, with pleasure, Jesse. So for me, it was, banking is highly competitive, as Jesse pointed out earlier. It's for every one position, you probably have 100 people applying. So, it's very competitive and they come from all over the world today, right? You're not just competing with folks from your country. So for me, my goals and motivations for joining the program was, to find a job in finance outside of Singapore, having lived in Singapore my whole life. So I wanted to work in, one of the major financial hubs in Hong Kong, London, and New York. So that was my goal coming out of the program, right? So all my, search and everything was outside. And it's difficult because your network isn't built. You don't have so many friends out there. But one amazing thing about ESSEC is they gave us study trips, career fairs. We did a short trip to London. This was very early into the program. It was like a 3-day trip. And I got to say that was my shortest, longest trip, flying from Singapore almost halfway around the world for 3 days and coming back and then having to do your midterms after that. That was an experience in its own. But in the whole trip, you get to meet people, hiring managers, team managers from different teams. Even if you don't get the role, it gives you a good insight in terms of what the team did and, what the expectations are if you join the team. And that over time, speaking to more people and, as you go on with your program, the program is so rigorous. It puts in so many keywords into your brain that, after a while, by the 10th person you're speaking to, you can already speak their lingo. You know what they're talking about. You're not staring at stars. You can speak with them and you're on par with them. I think that's the brilliance of this program, in a nutshell, right? So for me, breaking in was tough because, I was looking for a position that was slightly senior, not just a junior entry level. So it required more attention from me in terms of getting to know more people, more opportunities, outside of that. So one of the way I broke in was during the study trip, which the school had planned for us to go. I chose to go to Hong Kong. And when I was in Hong Kong, I reached out to a few people. I was like, I noted they were hiring and, I had coffees with them. One coffee turned into 7 interviews and 7 interviews later, here I am at my job. So I would say that was a very, rigorous process. I went through the entire 9 years. It's so competitive, right? So I landed my job in Hong Kong and that's where I was for 3 years. And then recently I've moved back. But it's an amazing journey in terms of the thrill of finding a job, meeting someone, knowing that you have no expectations of that person to offer you a job straight away. You have to just have a conversation with the person, build a genuine connection, and even if that person doesn't offer you a job, he may refer you to someone else, and that's actually what happened. So the referral process and all of that, and eventually, something will click for you, and it will come in together nicely.
Absolutely. I think what you've just shared is such a key information as well, because it's beautiful to hear how connections open doors for you. And what I really took away from that was the power of a sincere connection and engagement with someone. And the beautiful thing about being human and interacting with other humans is that a lot of times people can tell if you have an agenda. So if you are going to be speaking to somebody, having a coffee with them, a casual coffee, but actually having at the back of your mind, I want to get this job, they're going to give me a job, it's going to interestingly skew your conversations in a very different way. So I think it's very important to, even if you have the idea of building up your network, do it in a very sincere and authentic manner. Really get to know people. That there's more to them than just the job. And you'll be surprised sometimes it's those sincere connections that you build up that will ultimately send a job your way. So it's magical. Thank you so much for sharing that, Siva. Just going back to that point, it's you went through a hyper-competitive process. What do you feel was what made you stand out compared to all the other interviewees?
Sure. So for me, I think the biggest advantage I had was, firstly, the program in which we had is highly technical. If you're doing the master's in finance, you learn everything, and there's so much of math involved, there's so much of programming involved and all of that. So once you graduate from that, there's certain expectations of you as a graduate itself. So, it comes with that, right? A certain brand name and all of that. So, and they do give you tests, to actually measure up and see if you are all of what you say you are. And in all of that, it's a combination of that, as well as, how you present yourself and present your facts and your knowledge that you have, right? So with all of that, you give someone the reassurance that this guy knows exactly what they're talking about. And, if they come in, they'll be a valuable contributor to the team because, everyone goes into a team and they need to learn, what the team does and, fit in. And there's a certain, fit time of 3 to 6 months, depending on where you are. But at the same time, you still need to be able to contribute, right? I think what they're looking for is they'll show you the ropes, but as soon as you're in, you need to contribute to the team. And I think that's what the program gave. And, it builds your confidence as well when you speak to someone. So when I was speaking to my hiring manager, I think I was able to deliver in a certain manner, of what I was able to come in, do for them, in the short term, and over the long term, how I could, potentially contribute. So I think that was the difference between me and some of the other candidates.
Excellent. I think thank you so much for sharing that. Very useful tips indeed. I think the other thing that I took away from what you just shared was this. It's so extremely important to structure your thoughts, especially during an interview as well, to not just think about the job that you can do, but the value that you can add on over time. So thanks for that. Now that we've had a chance to really go a little bit into the past and think about, what were some of the challenges that our three panelists went through before getting their job and how they broke into the industry, I think this will be a good time to talk about what was the experience like when they actually got their job and they started working. So maybe we could start with Min. You could share with us maybe what do you love most about your job, your work, your day-to-day?
Sure. Yeah. So I think people are very, I'm sure a lot of you have already played with TikTok. So it is super fun, super addictive. Could be good or bad. Yeah. But then I think for me, working as a data analyst in TikTok, I think my biggest, the thing I'm mostly excited about my work is to really work with a lot of talented people here. So we do have a very international, a very diverse team, and then a lot of people with very strong experience, very technical background, and then to actually work with them, learning from them. And I think for me, this is a really exciting, not just day-to-day work, but super interesting, learning opportunity. And I think I really appreciate about my job is we are not really limited on our day-to-day job. There are so many interesting groups or side projects you can actually join, and or just it's very open communication. So I do see there are groups working on those kind of fraud detection on social media. So you can really see how they break those kind of social engineering, what technology they use. And then we also have those crazy new ideas pitching competition. Yeah, so I really think this is the part which super, super exciting about my day-to-day job. Yeah.
I think it's so evident on your face when you just simply light up when you talk about your work, and that's fabulous. Maybe you could also share with us what were some of the common misconceptions that people have about your industry, about ByteDance?
Sure. So I think the misconception probably will more come from the role about data analyst. I think there was a misconception about there is very clear distinction between data scientist, data analyst, or business analyst. I'm sure on the job scope, detailed job scope level, there are some differences. But actually, when it really comes to what you're working on and then what you need to deliver, there are a lot of similarities. And I think for my program, there are you are provided on both sides. You have the technical skills for both data scientists and data analysts. But when I actually start to look for jobs, and then when I also work on internships, which have both components of the data science and data analytics, I find them there are so many common grounds. And I think at the end, is what is most important is your ability to take your skills to put that framework into the business problem and then try to provide a super solution for that. You can do it through statistics, you can do it through modeling work. Yeah, but at the end, I think there is not completely separate. And then there is not really a hierarchy between which one is better or which one is worse. I think what's more important is the industry and your fit to the company.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much for that, Min. Kirtana, maybe you could share with us what were some of the common misconceptions or maybe even misconceptions you might have had before taking on your role, and what was it like after joining your company?
Right. Thank you for that question, Jesse. Okay, that's an interesting question, right? One, misconceptions about the industry. I think I've always been in healthcare, and for somebody who is not, it might seem that any function within the industry needs a healthcare background, right? And that's a common misconception I hear across the board. So what people often forget is that there's multiple different roles, even within mega medtech companies, which go anywhere from sales, finance, accounting, marketing. So a lot of my finance colleagues definitely don't have any healthcare background, but almost all of them share or have a shared passion for impacting, 2.5 billion lives around the world. So it comes down to being really aware that your skills don't always need to match with what the company does, but your skills definitely need to match with what you will be doing in the company. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the industry. The misconception I've had, I think, is more or less to do with the way people define certain things, right? And this goes back to what Min was saying earlier. A data scientist, a data analyst are all different ways of saying the same thing, if I have to put it very bluntly. So really understand what they mean by it, right? The rule of thumb is simple. When somebody says business intelligence analyst, it could mean 100 different things in 100 different companies, but really understand what it means in the company you're looking to apply for. So in case of Philips, it just means somebody who has an overarching strategic role to really drive growth across different countries in APAC. So that was my biggest misconception that business intelligence analyst is somebody who's extremely data driven, a lot of number crunching, but it's sort of on the opposite end of things. Yeah.
So it's really about contextualizing and really figuring out what the actual problems and challenges are and figuring the best way to solve them.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, Jesse, to add to what you said before, people often think that big companies have figured it out, that they have answers to everything. But once you really get into it, you realize, okay, there's a lot of blind spots and there's a lot of things that's still way, there's a lot of room for growth.
And I think that's something that we can take away with ourselves as well. There is never a need for you to always be perfect, to be a finished product. We are simply human beings. We are becoming. We become better and better and better. And I think just like companies as well. And it's so heartening to hear that. I think sometimes a lot of students, when they enter the workforce, they immediately feel like, I need to really step up my game, especially because it's a company that's been around, it's got things sorted, but it's not always the case.
Right.
Maybe you could also share with us, what do you really love about your work from a day-to-day point of view?
Right. So I've always been somebody who's driven by value creation, right? And when I mean value creation, almost always within the scope of healthcare. So it really matters to me that the end goal is not selling sugar beverages, but that it is impacting lives out there. And those might be lives of doctors, clinicians, patients, anybody who's within the whole ecosystem. What I absolutely love about my job, and that sort of inspires me, is this vision of being able to really touch lives of millions and millions of people around the world and bring in the aspects of access and affordability to healthcare. I mean, from India, I do know that those are not two things that can be taken for granted. And I would love to continue to work in a place where, people's lives are so much more better. And COVID is an example of the fact that we really need to work on our healthcare infrastructure.
Excellent. Thank you. It's so meaningful, the work that you do. And I think it's easy to get it to align to a deeper purpose of yours. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Now, before we go on to Siva and trying to figure out what are some of the things that drives him at work, I just want to check in with everyone who's listening in right now. If you have questions that are coming up, do hit them up in the chat. We will be taking questions at 12 o'clock for about 10 shortly. and coming back again. Siva, perhaps you could share with us finance. We all think finance, it's where all the big money is. Give us, maybe from your point of view, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about your industry?
Sure, thanks, Jesse. I still think finance is where the big money is, which is why I'm here as well. But yes, some of the misconceptions, if you join a bank, you're just going to do one thing and you're going to make a lot of money and you can retire by 30, penthouse and, somewhere on the beach, just like you now, Jesse. But, it's it's quite different when you join in. You're not exactly going to be in a silo. You're going to be working across teams. You're going to be doing so many things that you never thought you would do, or it wasn't in your job description, but you're going to pick it up anyways, right? Because, when you joined, you were curious. Of course, you wanted to do, and when you join, of course, when somebody else has to do something, you're quite keen and you would want to impress them as well, right? So you would want to stretch your mind and, go across things as much as possible. And I think that only works to your benefit, right? Because that helps you grow as a person, lets you do more things. And I think that's what sets someone, someone who's normal, apart from someone who's going to be great in about 10 years, right? So that's the difference, I would say, if you join finance. And what I like about my job, now this is the really interesting part, right? Because my job's in structuring, so I get to cover a lot of things. Essentially it can be anything, right? So I've done aircraft deals, I do fintech deals, I do private equity deals. So they're all over the place. And that's the beauty of it. I wake up every day coming in knowing that I got to stretch my mind. I got to look into this, completely change the way I think, switch into another field, completely change the way I think. But I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still doing structuring. I still need to view everything. I still need to make it, make money in that sense, right? So it's wonderful. And, I can share with you an experience. So I did this aircraft deal where we securitized, 20 of our aircraft, found investors to participate in it and all of that. And I was actually, after the deal was concluded, I was flying off on a holiday, much needed one. And I actually was flying to France for my graduation in ESSEC. So one of the things I did was I intentionally moved my flight one day after so that I could fly on the aircraft that I did the deal for, So that was very interesting for me. As I was sitting down, I knocked the panels, I was like, yeah, I did this. So those are the little wins you get. And it's things like that makes you excited to wake up and come to the office every day. So that's one of the wonders of my job, I would say.
That's so amazing. And it's so lovely to actually see the tangible fruit of something that you've done. Very powerful indeed. I picked up another key point that I think might be really useful for our audience. And it's this, it's what you just said about a career, about making money. It's a long game. It's sometimes something that will take a bit of time, 10 years or so. And it's so important for you to get your foundations really right and to keep our expectations also in check. I think too many times right now, especially with news everywhere we go about the latest person being a billionaire, another person who creates a startup and they have gone on to sell the company for hundreds of millions of dollars. It doesn't give an accurate view of what's really happening in the world. Not everyone is going to be there, but we have to take concrete, short, structured steps towards achieving those kind of outcomes. And sometimes having that long-term goal can be really helpful. So thank you so much, the three of you, I think, for sharing some of the misconceptions about your industry, stuff that you love about your work. I think it's great that we've had a chance to look at some of the challenges you faced before getting the job, how you broke into the industry, what your experience has been like, the culture of the company, some misconceptions, and what you really love about the job. I think this might be a useful juncture for us all to take a step back and think about how all of this entire journey really began. And when I had this chat with you, all of you earlier on, a lot of you kept talking about how the master's program that you did was really, really impactful. So maybe we can talk about that now and really figure out, from your point of view individually, how do you think that master's program that you completed actually helped you in breaking into these industries? Siva, would you like to go first?
Sure, with pleasure. So for me, when I did the master's, I already had a goal coming out of it, right? So before I went in, I knew what I wanted. In the sense, I wanted a role that was more into structuring. I wanted a role outside of Singapore in a major financial hub. So I had all of these grandeur ideas, going in to the program. So for me, when I joined the program, I kind of already expected it to be, rigorous, to give me all the technical skills. And also during the program, I chose to do the financial markets track, which is, a little bit more technical in terms of the courses that they teach you. So with that, I was able to gain a lot of the lingo, I would say, that I needed to speak to someone else in my field, right? So, and even today, like, when someone talks to you about something and, you toss in this key term, and they realize, hey, we both went through the same pain a few years ago. So, they understand and they know where you're coming from, and they know, your caliber and so on. So I would say that's the important thing, right? That's the key. And of course, within a bank, it's huge, right? There's so many divisions and whatnot, but there's certain key aspects across all of them that everyone has. What we call the foundation blocks, right? Everyone needs to know the bare minimum, and it's how high you can build your foundation blocks that's really interesting. And I think ESSEC, as the master's school, really puts in so much of effort into knowing the breadth and depth as well of each topic, right? So once you've covered the entire program, it gives you the utter confidence to go out to anyone and put yourself out there knowing that you are one of the best, right? And, that in my mind, it puts you on such a platform that it's actually quite hard for your competition to even catch up. So, you're already on a brilliant starting scale, and you just got to be confident and go out there and get it. So I think that's what the program delivers on the whole.
I think that's lovely to hear how it just gave you that sense of inner confidence. And when you have that sense of inner confidence, it just shows across to people that you meet. And I think the other key point was how it's so fascinating how you, in terms of the culture fit, it's already there because you already are familiar with the lingo, the key terms that are used, and immediately it helps you build that sense of empathy with talent managers or even the hiring managers. Yeah. Gets you really as it is the starting block, you're already right there at the front thanks to the program. And, just with all of that, it just helps you win the game. So I think that's a fabulous story. Thanks for sharing, Siva.
With pleasure, Jesse.
Thank you. Chenmin, maybe you could share with us, how do you feel your master's program helped you in getting this project? I know you mentioned a little bit about how the project in itself was extremely useful, but maybe you could share about the holistic view of the master's program. What do you think it did for you in getting that job?
Sure. But actually, after hearing Siva, I feel like he already captured it perfectly. I couldn't think something else to add, but maybe just a little bit more is to something I really enjoy about my program is the project. So we for almost every course, we do have quite a few projects to work on. And I think those are like the simulations to the real interview and to the real work problems you would solve as a data analyst. Because usually you are not asked to do certain stuff. You're thrown with like a business problem, and then you do have some context. And then what you need to do is really coming from scratch. How do you want to, what is your angle to look at the problem? Then you propose certain solution, and then you work out the model and try to convince the professor that your result is a good one. Yeah, so I feel like those kind of process is not only teach you the technical skills, the analytical skills needed as a data analyst, but it's really also position you to work on real world problems, which you won't be instructed on how to do stuff. You need to look for that first.
And I think that's really fabulous when we're left to our own devices to find those kind of solutions to real world problems. I think that's where the deepest learning happens, the shift happens internally. And I feel, onto Siva's point itself, it gives you that sense of confidence, like, hey, even though I am in a master's program, when I go out there and get a job, I will be familiar with not just the lingo, but the issues, the challenges. And because I've solved I've looked at problems from a very structural, strategically way, I can then solve them for others as well. So again, it seems to go back on, giving you that strong, solid foundation. Thanks a lot, Min. And Kirtana, maybe you could share with us your point of view on the master's program. How did it help you? What was the holistic program like?
Sure, definitely, Jesse. I think I'm going to go on a different tangent than both Siva and Shenmin because this was my second master's. So my priorities were definitely way different, I'm guessing. I was looking to move back into Asia. I was also looking to make a career transition from more patient-facing roles into business roles within healthcare. Now, I know for a fact that most of my cohort within SMIB were in sort of the same boat, right? Most of them were 1 or 2 years into their early careers, were looking to break into managerial roles, and were looking to explore working in Asia. Now, given that was the context, I think the SMIB program, especially in the APAC campus, offers you a breadth of concepts that's entrenched with Asian values, entrenched with the way of working in Asia, and also the most relevant topics, right? So in terms of tangible things we learned, it was one, navigating cultural nuances while working on complex problems. 2 was being able to work remotely with teams, stay motivated, and really make that deliverable happen. 3rd one was just the kind of support you do get from folks within the ESSEC campus, right? And that could just be support in terms of career phase. That could be support in terms of even simple things like, hey, counseling about how do I brush up my resume? How do I make the most of my application? Or I have a consulting project. How do I, give a good go at it? So most of those things are part of the package apart from the actual course and actual project itself. So I think that's, from my point of view, that's what makes the master's program more valuable than a lot of others out there.
It really seems like it's given you that holistic, comprehensive team almost that's at your beck and call to, in a sense, really just help you get the job of your dreams.
Right.
It's fabulous to hear.
Yeah.
Now, thank you so much for that. I think it's so nice that you are where you are right now. Let's take a moment to look at the entire journey you've taken so far. And maybe what you can do is, I want you to imagine that you are now talking to your younger self, who is perhaps thinking about doing a master's program or not. What would be some advice that you would give to your younger self? Any one of you, I'll leave this, any one of you can answer this first.
I'll probably take a stab at it just because I love this question. But let's just say what I would want to say to my younger self is look at all dimensions of what it means to do a master's program, right? Does it make sense for you to do it from your career point of view? Does it really bring value to it? Does it make sense for you from a financial point of view? Can you afford to actually do that master's program and make sure it puts you into a better place for earning more, like Siva said, which is definitely one of the goals for a lot of people, and it should be. 3rd, does it really make sense from a growth perspective, not just professionally, but is it something that will add personal growth to you? Being in a different atmosphere, being able to even just speak with different people, really understand and empathize their experiences. That's the kind of personal growth I'm talking about. And finally, just autonomy. I think that's a big part of being an immigrant or an international student in any country, right? You need to figure out everything from how to pay your house bills, telephone bills, to how to actually make it to school on time, and how do you manage your projects, and how do you have fun on weekends. I mean, it's the whole spectrum, so to speak. But yeah, I think my advice would be to really look into all dimensions and see if it makes sense for you. It may not for everybody, but if it does, just go for it.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Kirtana. Siva, Chanmin, would you like to chime in?
Yeah,
Sure. Go ahead, Min.
Sure. Yeah, so I think my answer would just be a very quick one, because I do feel like if I'm looking back and then thinking some advice I would give to myself, I feel like I think first, I know I will still make the same decision. I think it's a great master and it's a great decision to actually change my career direction. But I think the only advice I would give is just to enjoy the time more, because it's so precious to have this master program time, which you get to interact with so many brilliant people, and then all of you share the same passion. You're already in the same program and you want a similar career change. So I really feel like if I'm looking back, and also to anybody who is going to start the program or thinking about to start the program, I think it's a really good option if you want to change to data science or analytics career, and then just enjoy the time in the master. Like, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable to go through all those change and very intensive program, but I think you will really enjoy it after you have completed, and also get the job you want, get the career direction you want to go to.
Excellent. I think it's so important advice. Enjoy the journey as well. And how about you, Siva?
Sure. Thanks, ladies, for going ahead. For me, I would say, if I had to look at my younger self, I'll say I'd do it sooner. You don't have to wait that long. Just do it sooner, because the edge that it gives you, it propels you forward in your career. I think that will tell my younger self. And to Min's point, to enjoy the journey. I wish I had done that as well. It was very rigorous, so it was very challenging. Even if I had to look back today, I don't know how I could have enjoyed it a little bit more. But it's a fantastic program, and I would tell myself, just go for it whilst you're still very much younger. It gives you the edge to start your career earlier, to start everything earlier, because you can start the program being a little bit unsure of what you want to do. It's fine to start that, right? We're all not the complete product, but through the program in itself, you start to realize where you excel in, where you don't, what naturally keeps you awake, right? There's some modules that you do that, you're just going to wake up and want to do it, and the others that just struggling and dragging your feet along. So that in itself will give you guidance in terms of what you want to do, and that's what I'll tell myself.
Excellent. Do it sooner. Now, let's maybe wrap up this panel discussion by perhaps sharing some wise words to all the listeners out there. Anyone who's watching this, listening to this, who might be at a juncture where they're thinking about going into a master's program. Any advice you have for them? Any one of you?
Sure, maybe I can take this one first, Jesse. So in terms of a master's, I think you need to really know what you want to do, right? It's key to form your goals before you start, because every master's is going to be demanding, regardless of which school you take, which program you take. It's going to be an element of difficulty there. You need to sustain your interest and all that, and that kind of guides your next 5 to 10 years of your life, right? So you need to be a little bit sure that you want to do this, and if you want to do this, then I would say definitely consider which program you want to do, so that can give you the leg up, right? I would say that's very important. And doing a master's is a huge commitment, financially, emotionally, across the board, right? Intellectually, you've got to stretch your mind all over again if you've not been in school, in an academic environment for a while. So I would say it's a lot of commitment, but if you are willing to take the leap, it could be very worth it.
Excellent. Thank you for those wise words. Min, would you like to chime in?
Sure. Yeah. So when I think about maybe the advice I give to those people who are considering, I do feel like just copying Siva's was try to be very sure you want to go into that field. But then what I was also thinking is after you have finished the program, after you have went through the program, I'm more thinking about the interview process and get the dream job you want. I would also advise you to treat the whole interview process just like another course, do it very systematically, practice it, and also try to, you just treat it like a course itself. The whole interview process itself, it really takes study, also takes practice to actually perfect your interview skills and land the dream job you want.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Kirtana.
Right. I'm going to make it quick, right? And it comes down to don't be afraid to ask questions. And those questions might be all the questions that both Siva and Shenman said, right? Why do I want to do it? How can I get the right kind of help? What does it mean for me personally? All of those questions. So really ask yourself why just before you even embark on the journey, and see if it justifies every why downstream.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. Now, with that, ladies and gentlemen, what we've done today is we have talked about how do you break into tech, finance, and digital transformation with your master's degree. What we did today was we had 3 lovely panelists who have gone through the ESSEC master's program and who have landed amazing jobs in those industries. What we did was we looked at what were some of the challenges they faced after the ESSEC master's program, and then before getting a job, how did they actually break into the industry, some of their experiences while being on that job. And they've also shared with you some advice. And, you know, to wrap all of this up, what it really seems to be, and that I'm getting from all of you, is that the ESSEC Master's program really did play a huge pivotal role in helping you get this job, not just in terms of giving you all that technical knowledge and know-how, but it also gave you that quiet sense of confidence, that inner confidence to be able to speak, connect, and engage with the talent managers, the hiring managers, and communicate with them the value that you could possibly add. So I think it's been lovely to hear all of your points of views, and I think we've got a few minutes now to take any questions that you have. So anyone who's got a question, feel free to just toss a question over to us.
I would say you could do the same program I did, the Masters in Finance. But I do know that there are now a couple of new programs that have a bridge between Masters in Finance and something else as well. So it's entirely up to you. But Masters in Finance definitely will help you, give you that edge into breaking into investment banking or financial markets, something of that sort.
Excellent, great. Any other feedback? Any other insights that any of the 3 of you would like to share? Maybe before we go into a breakout room where the other listeners and viewers can join in and ask you further questions.
Right, so maybe just a quick overview of what SMIB means, because I keep referring it to as SMIB. So SMIB is the Strategy Management International Business Program. Again, to simplify it, it just means a subject which will teach you everything from a little bit of finance, a little bit of management, a little bit of cultural context. So it's the whole management, unlike I would say the Masters in Finance, which is very focused. This is very broad in the sense of being able to get a flavor for different business topics. So this was one of my big challenges, Jesse, which is figuring out what the hell SMIB meant. And I'm glad I did before I got into the program. So just a tidbit out there.
Lovely. Now, let me perhaps ask the 3 of you, anyone can answer this. What kind of additional support did you get from the ESSEC team in helping you get that job? I know some of you, you went on LinkedIn and you looked for jobs. Some of you had your own your connections, like Kirtana, you had a mentor that helped you bring you in. Anything else that you'd like to share about some of the other help that you got along the way?
Sure, maybe I can take this one, Jesse. So for the Masters in Finance program, when you start the course, you don't actually start the course with, the technical knowledge. You start the course with an interview session in terms of how to prepare your resume and all of that, because as you would know, the application process for what they call the summer associate will close somewhere in September, and that's like 1 month into your program, right? So they will start off by teaching you how to write your resume, how to answer questions on banks' websites and all of that, right? They'll give you sample answers and the whole 9 yards in a sense. So that's the first step that comes in. So that in itself already prepares you for, you know, what is expected of you and how much effort you need to put in from day one, right? So you already need to come in with your resume semi-polished, you know, and all of that, and then you can, you know, just fine tune it a little bit for what you need, you know, for different jobs, you need to fine tune it a little bit differently. So from day one, you have an instructor coming in, they're very successful, you know, they have guided so many of our alumni to, you know, their dream jobs in their dream companies, and that is a, you know, tested and proven method to get it. So you would benefit a lot from that. And, you know, once, and don't be afraid once you didn't get into those bank programs, because outside of that, there are also other programs that you can get. And, you know, our career center would help you with resume if you need, you know, in terms of how to prepare for a call. Sometimes you're just nervous, right? You know, when you have a call, you're like, did I cover all the angles? And then you can just go down to career center, you know, have a chat with them. They will give you a quick, you know, they'll look at you, they'll have a feel for you, right? And tell you, okay, maybe you need to focus on this, focus on that, and then you'll be good.
It's so reassuring to have that that whole team out there that's rooting for you and that's you know, doing everything they can to just help you achieve those goals. So heartening to hear that. Maybe we can just yeah, Min, you'd like to share?
Yes. Yeah, I also want to add to that. Like, I feel like I also get a lot of help from the career service department in ESSEC, like both actually in France campus and in Singapore campus. Yeah, so I think Siva already covered on the resume and interview side. And I just want to add a little bit more because when I was looking for jobs, I was like thinking which kind of industry, like which kind of path I want to take. Yeah, so like for me to make that decision, I also talked to the career service in the Singapore campus. So it's not really like a very specific like advice, but the career service really laid out like what are the pros and cons, and just to kind of bring another layer to my career options. Yes. Yeah. And then another thing I would also find very interesting is also, I actually also talked to my professor about my interview questions. It happens on a, I was doing like an online test assignment on optimization problem. And at that time, I'm also taking optimization course in ESSEC too. Yeah, so it's like, it just came out like, I did have the chance to even ask my professor, like, what do you think of this solution? Yeah, so that's like, you get support from the career service, from your professor, and also, of course, from your peers, like, because there will be people who interview in similar industries, similar companies, and then you guys share the experience, exchange, like, what are the things you could do, or what types of interviews they usually give.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Min. So with all of that, I hope this session, before we break out into the breakout rooms, which is happening right now, I just want to thank everyone who has been with us for the last hour, listening to all the insights that have been shared by Siva, by Min, and Kirtana.